Hello, Kike. How are you?
Hello, Nadeem. Fine. Just
I,
with
I
a cup of tea.
great. I've just started the stream on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for people to join us and catch up because, unfortunately, as you can see, this is amateur hour. You know, a very amateurish, unfortunately, way of doing things. But it's there's no other option for me because I just don't know how else to do this. So next time
Yeah.
we have an interactive thing, I'm sure I'll have this sorted out. So we can just have one stream, people viewing it, and not having to switch streams. But it's good. It keeps people on your toes. I think you realise that people haven't gone to make a cup of tea or gone to sleep. You know, that you can see people joining now. You know, which is a good thing. So I know that the crowd is following us from room to room, virtually.
Yeah, that's true. But
So,
hopefully, on next year we can make this physically, and we can all be there and
yeah,
drink
I
a
mean,
couple of teas together and all that.
we always have. I mean, since 2018, we had one. The first one we had in was the UK in 2018, and then we had another one in America in Las Vegas, and
Mm-hmm.
that was physical. And then we had one again in London last year. So we tend to have them in person. Obviously, because of COVID, we and the restrictions and the uncertainty of people traveling and all this, you know, the volatile situation in terms of what's legal and what's not. One day it's legal to fly from one country to the next. Next day it's not.
Yeah.
Quarantining requirements, all this kind of stuff. So I just thought, you know, it's coming to autumn as well. There may be a second wave of infections, and it wasn't worth taking.
Here the second wave is currently happening because I can actually take a plane and fly to London, but I can go to certain neighborhoods here in Madrid. I ain't even been able to see my brother who lives in the city center.
Oh God, yeah.
So right now in Madrid, what they are doing is confining and enclosing certain places. So you can now go there or go outside of there to another places. So it is kind of crazy because it is starting to hitting us hard again. More people are dying on a daily basis. I guess
Yeah,
this
and
kind.
I've seen it. So I've heard it's yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
grim, really.
here in Spain we didn't manage very very good this situation, I think. But
Hmm. Well, I just kept myself locked up in a flat for quite a few months, um, just you know, waiting for this to be over. I was hoping that'd be over by now, but obviously not. I think it's going to be there for the long term, at least until next year, until there's a vaccine or whatever it is. So we've got 5 people who've joined us now, so I suppose we can start this interview. I'm just wary of time. So Imperial Oud Faisal is meant to be joining us at in 15 minutes. Obviously, he's not going to. I'm going to message him now and let him know that we're running a bit late. I'm hoping that he knows that we're running late, but I know he's a busy guy, so I'm going to message him now just to let you know, so that we can have 25 minutes or so for interview.
at what time is Imperial scheduled?
He's meant to be coming on at 3 o'clock, but it's going to be 3:15, I think. So okay, so he's going to come in at 3:15, so that's fine.
Perfect.
Okay, so we've got 7 people. We've got a small little audience, 8 people now watching. I think we had 18 and 19 for the previous one, so slowly they'll catch up. So yeah, let's. I'll give the floor to you,
Okay.
and we'll proceed.
Okay. So we are going to talk about Al Hashimi. Just to remind everyone or get introduced to the ones who didn't know Al Hashimi yet, Al Hashimi was established by a team with decades of experience of oud and general perfumery between them to continue the ancient tradition of Middle Eastern perfumery. They are specialized in very high-end oud, both oil and wood. Maybe more orientated towards the wood, reviews speaks for itself, but definitely producing top-notch quality oud and focused in represent the ancient Arabian oud tradition. Ahmad, Nadim, and Malik are the 3 souls behind this perfume house. They are involved at every stage, from conception of the type of wood oil to be produced, to the pre-production, inspection, and selection of the best quality and types of wood, to proprietary techniques and methods employed during the distillation process, and then finally in ensuring that highest quality wood oils by a thorough post-distillation conditioning of the wood oil. Al-Hashimi only works with distillers who have a proven track record in creating the finest wood oils in the world and operate on a basis of trust based on past experience and verification based on constant evaluation of suppliers and the wood oils they produce. So, without further ado, my first question would be, which message are you willing to transmit with Al-Hashimi?
Sorry, which message did you say?
Which message are you willing to transmit with Al-Hashimi?
Which method am I willing to transmit?
Message, the message. What
message? Oh, okay. So, in terms of who we are and what we're about.
Yeah, what are you, creating such a special or using such a special ingredient? I guess many people will experience the same as me with this, as Rahil says in his interview. He said the oud could be medicine and also help you in so many things, which I think so. So each company is aiming or willing to transmit a message with it, a message of I don't know, of power.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think you said it yourself really when you in the introduction to the video to the interview. You mentioned about being a Middle Eastern house, and really, if you look at the culture in the Middle East, and you look at the role of oud, agarwood perfumery over there, it fulfills a social function. Okay, it's apparent. If you look at I'll give you an example. Right, if you look at the Far Eastern tradition, the Japanese, the Chinese, agarwood in its wooden, as wood, as an incense, it's used in a lot of rituals, meditation, etc. But if you look, one thing that they have in common is that it requires personal space. It requires meditative space, personal reflection. And the person, it's not a social thing really, as much as it is in the Middle East, where over there they, so for example, the coda session, you'd be looking for a note that is maybe hard to discern, or you have to really focus your mind and concentrate on looking at the different notes that appear from a small strand of chiaro. In the Middle East, the Arabs will have in the mosque or in the majlis, a meeting place, they'll have a huge burner with a lot of coal in it, chuck chunks of wood onto it, which they probably wouldn't dream of doing in China, in the Middle East, China and Japan. And the reason is because it's a social thing. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that fragrance and wearing perfumes is a form of charity. So people who burn incense, people who wear perfumes, wear it to share with other people because it's considered an act of charity over there in their culture. So they want to be seen and smelled, over there. They want people to be able to smell what they're wearing. And because there's a whole cacophony, a whole a whole array of different smells from different people wearing strong perfumes, they're all fighting, right, to vie for attention. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you really have to have something strong and something recognizable, and that projects well to be able to, appreciate perfume in that society. So that's the roots of the Al-Hashimi aesthetic, is that we want to make oils with a hallmark that our oils, they last long, that they are suitable for a social environment, rather than just quiet contemplation. We do have those kind of oils as well, but our spirit and our ethos is rooted in that Middle Eastern environment where people wear it as a social thing. So you'll find the woods that people burn, again, on charcoal. Charcoal itself, the way that charcoal burns is it heats the wood very, very quickly. and you have to have large amounts of wood with lots of smoke coming out of it as well. Totally the opposite to maybe, you know, using ash in a Kodo burner or a suppitism heater, which is like a little, for people who are not aware or familiar with it, it's a little heating element and beneath the mica plate, which gently heats oils rather than gently heats wood rather than burning it, and the smoke is not even discernible, right? So it's a totally different tradition. So Al-Hashimi really embraced that Middle Eastern aesthetic, and the other side to it is, as well. I mean, Malik's, I think, said pretty good things about being brought up in a culture where perfume, and especially oud, is integral to their lives. So they were brought up with it. It's not like something new or a fad for them. It was something that they've known since, you know, they were young. But another thing I wanted to add was that the Arabian oud scene, or companies that produce oud oil, they've been criticized, and I think unfairly, because one of the criticisms against them is that they use harmful methods, sunning, lamping, whatever you want to call it, or they cut their oils, etc. You have to understand the criticism that's been directed towards those kind of producers. They are mass producers for a mass market. They're not producing oils for small batches of small amount of people. The kind of oils, you know, the high quality oils that you know, the highest quality oils that you can find in the world, right? They do exist in these countries amongst discerning clientele, and companies like Al Ajmal, for example, right, or other some other Quraishi, they do in their, you know, in their collections have these special oils, but they don't sell them in their stores because simply there's not enough to go around. So the criticism that's leveled against these companies, I think it's a bit unfair, but they had, you know, a huge business selling oud back in the 70s and 80s when oud was quite cheap, widely available. Of course, they had to diversify and go into more mainstream perfumery, synthetics, etc., just to keep their market share. I don't criticize them for that. I understand why they did it. It was a business decision. It didn't impact on the owners, you know, being in love. And the reason why I'm discussing all this is because it comes back to Al-Hashimi. And the way it comes back to Al-Hashimi is that we've realized that there's a bit of a gap there in terms of retail space in the Gulf and in the Arab world generally, that those companies that used to produce those old style Arabian oils, because they don't exist or they've wandered far away from their roots for commercial reasons, we want to fill that gap. We want to go back in there and say, look, this region produced some amazing oils, okay? And it's got an amazing tradition of oud oils, because if you look at the usage of oud oils, oud as an oil is really predominantly used in the Middle East. It's not used predominantly in Japan or China. They use the incense more and the wood, you know, burning the wood. I mean, not to negate the fact that some amazing oils have come out of China and Taiwan, really amazing, which reflect upon their tradition. And, you know, we appreciate that for what it is. But there are already vendors out there selling that kind of stuff, and we don't want to ape them. We want to be original and true to what we are. And that's really the heart of Al-Hashimi. It's the authentic heart of the Arabian tradition of oud as an oil, as wood, and as used in the context, social context that is used over there. So as we progress as a company, we are slowly starting to control the different elements of production, because of course, you know, when you start up, you don't have all the controls as a supply chain, production, etc. You've got to start from somewhere. Everyone has to start from somewhere. So now we've built our distillery. We've got a lab in Sweden, which is producing world-class artisanal resins. Some of the techniques that we've employed there, I don't think any other company that I've come across has these kind of resins. They're very, very unique. I mean, I think Matt from who's sitting right opposite me right now, it was mind blown when he smelt it. They say it on X, for example, because this is another area where while we want to maintain our traditional character and hallmark for our products, we also want to create new and innovate new products, but in that tradition. If you understand what I'm saying. So absolutely, we don't want to produce something revolutionary in that sense, except for the fact that it fits into that tradition, but it's contemporary as well. So and the reason why the resins are so special is because we can produce them from very, very decent grades of sandalwood and oud wood, which normally would be used for incense, but to produce a resin and an oil which is extracted, okay, not distilled, but extracted which has a totally different characteristics and behavior to normal distilled oud oil. One example I'll give you is, and I know I've been talking for a while, but I just want to finish off with this. I bought some very high-grade sandalwood logs from a well-known vendor, Mudic, a couple of years back, and those logs were of extremely high quality. The trees that they were taken from were, I think, over 100 years old, and they'd been aged as well for about 10 years to let the scent mature and become more, I don't know what the word is, but more developed.
Macerate.
Yeah, these are logs, so these are wooden logs that we're speaking of. So when I bought the logs, I smelled them, and they were very aromatic at room temperature. Absolutely beautiful, creamy Mysore smell. Different to essential oils, different to Mysore sandalwood, right? It's a totally different thing. Very, very airy, almost like candy floss type, but Mysore sweetness to it. And I'd never really smelled that before. It was a beautiful smell. When we produced the Ceylon, the Santal X, Ahmed sent me a sample, and I put it on my hand. I kid you not, my hand smelled of that wood. It was as if my hand was the wood. I mean, that is the thing that he's achieved. And I wanted to give a shout out to Ahmed, because a lot of people, don't really know that Ahmed is a big part of the company, but he's got a background in chemistry, so he's very, very adept in innovation and producing things from the raw materials that other companies haven't so far. So we're very, very proud of this, and I don't think we've pushed it hard enough and shouted out about it hard enough. And I'm going to do that now, because the artisanal resins that we're producing, I don't think they're comparable to anything else anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I never smelled something even close to Ceylon X, and I find it pretty unique. So from my side, congratulations to Ahmad too, because I think it is amazing what he did with that oil. Okay, what direction are the Al Hashimi house going to? Because you told me the other day that you are just commissioning your own distillery. So which are your next projects, especially with the new distillery? What you have for us?
Sure. So we've got, at the moment, we've got an oil cooking away, Thai oil. We've got sinking grade Filipino oil coming up as well. I'll leave it at that. There are other woods as well, but I don't think Malik will be very happy if I spill the beans on everything. But those two, certainly, the reason why I've mentioned them to you is because we've mentioned them before in the past year. The distillery has been delayed for about almost by 8 or 9 months because of the pandemic. We couldn't get workers, electricians, etc., enough, to do the work that was outstanding. So, I mean, I'll let Malik talk about the distillery in depth, because he will be coming on later and actually showing the distillery, showing the pots, etc. Hopefully next year we'll have a permanent residence for these things. At the moment, it's in Malik's flat. But nonetheless, we've invested in very, very high quality equipment, even down to industrial grinders, etc. And we're producing very, very high quality oils in the tradition that I've mentioned. And also we're innovating in different ways, which I don't want to mention right now, because it'll be a nice surprise when they're finally released. But we're doing it with a bit of a twist that no one else has done before. So the long-term or medium-term aim for Al Hashimi really is that we're focusing on our distillation oils. We're going to continue, because we've tried our best to keep prices down. We try to be fair with customers. So normally when we produce an oil, we'll go to the distiller and we'll pick the wood, or we'll go and distill it ourselves with the distiller on their premises. So the Aden oil, which is one of the first oils we produced, is a good example of that. Malik went to Malaysia, and he spent some time there picking the wood, taking it to the distiller. So we selected the wood, we brought it to the distillery, and worked with the distiller to produce the oil, the Aden oil, which sold out very, very quickly. Literally within days, I think it sold out. That was our first Filipino oil. And then while he was there, he also selected some more wood from another source and arranged for that to be distilled, and that was the Adnan oil. So we will still continue our engagement with other distillers. because Saudi Arabia, the distillery over there will be producing only the highest level oils, or the experiments that we're doing, as you know, because it's an evolutionary learning process for us. We've only been around for 2 years in terms of, as a company, 2.5 years. So we're learning, you know, as everyone is always, but we're still in the early stages of, you know, our potential and what we can do. But our long-term aim is basically to have a very high set of oils with a particular hallmark produced in Saudi to certain standards, and also cater to people who, you know, may want slightly different types of oils. So we'll work with distillers, as we have been doing in the past 2 years. And we don't work with any distillers. We have exclusive, pretty much the people we work with are exclusive to us, because we just find that it's better that way, because then there's a relationship, they understand what we require, and they produce oils to the specifications that we need. And that we know there's no messing around as well, because it's hard sometimes dealing with people because things are lost in translation. So it's something that we'll be doing for the next foreseeable future, is producing our own high-end oils, but also making available oils at a very affordable price that we have been doing, by, you know, working with other distillers to bring those to the market. We have focused on wood heavily as well. Our wood, I'm proud to say, is, you know, it can go up against anyone, any vendor. It's not a competition, but we're just proud of it, because I know how much time and effort Malik makes in sourcing these woods, and I know how much time and effort Ahmed makes in cleaning them up, because we really, you know, from start to finish, we take off all the gunk, all the hard, you know, white wood and anything that's there that we deem extraneous. You'll get wood from suppliers, which is very high quality, but they'll have ants' nests in them and all sorts of things. And it's Ahmed's job to grade them and sort them out. And he's an expert in that. He spent the last 5 years cleaning wood. So yeah, this is Al Hashimi. Someone asked on the chat, is this about Al Hashimi? Yeah, it is. This is about the Al Hashimi vendor, which we have 3 bases, one in London, one in Sweden, and one in Saudi Arabia. So we're going to continue in the same vein. We are, you know, looking to do other things, produce our own attars as well. I was actually into natural perfumery before I was into oud, and I still am, really. And I think one of the reasons why I've never used my oud collection extensively is because although I love ouds, I mean, I can't really, I'd never want to live without them. Natural perfumery is more in my heart as well.
Yeah.
So I'm really into that, and so we're going to start pushing for our own others as well very, very soon. We were meant to have done it a long time ago, but, you know, with these kind of things, it takes time to macerate things, you know, like castoreum in sandalwood or whatever it is. It takes a year or two, so we're behind the curve on that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I will definitely be on the lookout for it, because I love natural perfumery. So those are good news. Okay, I have another question that is, and I briefly mentioned it on my review time, and it is regarding we all know that the origin or the region from where the tree belongs can affect to the smell and the attributes of that oil. But what about the species of the tree, or even the soil where that tree is planted?
You know, when I saw this question, I sent it to Malik and Ahmed yesterday, and I was like, oh my god, I'm dreading to answer this question, because I'm not an expert in this. I'll be honest with you. So I'm going to answer it from a common sense point of view.
Okay.
So, you know, when you grow anything, crops, whatever you have, and oud is no exception, right? What comes out of the ground is subject to the environment around it, the soil, the minerals inside the soil, and one example, I'll give you a specific example of this, is, I'll give you 2 examples, in fact. So Bangladesh, and I was talking to Rahel from Oud Base, and he was telling me how the water in Bangladesh is very, very heavy with iron, you know, the metal, right, mineral. And if you use that for distillation, it has a huge impact on the final product, right? In the same way the trees soak up the nutrients in the soil, right? So depending on where the trees are, depending on the type of soil, you know, whether it's clay, whether it's you know, whether it's rich loam, depending on the climate. This all has an impact on the final product, and I think that also gives characteristics to the oud oil from different regions. It's not. I don't think it's just the species. I think it's the ambience and the environment and the water that's used, the soil that's grown in as well. I know the Russian Adam from Feel Oud, he was very, very particular about these kind of things. He would use mineral water, or he'd go to a particular lake or a river to capture some kind of characteristic or feature or property, you know, which would impact the oud oil. So yeah, I think all of these natural features impact the oil. Now, if you ask me how, I think that really is a question for someone who's experienced in being out in the jungle, having distilled day in, day out. And I'm not going to make any pretense that I'm that person. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm more, you know, on the other side of things, appreciating the oils when they come out, and delving into, you know, how they're made, etc. And I'm hoping at some point in time in my life I will learn these things. But I'm a student, you know. I'm a student. We're learning, and that's what we want to do. We want to share our knowledge with other people. Having said that, I mean, Al-Hashimi, you know, Malik is one of the most intelligent guys. I mean, I probably feel embarrassed me saying this, but one of the most intelligent guys I've met. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen the blog on Al-Hashimi, but Daha from Al-Gaora was shocked when he saw Malik's 3-series part blog on the genetics of agarwood, right? Because he studied genetics and he applied this knowledge to agarwood timeline, evolution of agarwood, you know, and he's shown the different connections and relationships between different species of agarwoods, of Aquilaria, different subspecies. And Daha said to Malik that, you know, I'm shocked because I knew that there was a connection, because I've, from experiences, smelt the two woods, and you can see there's some kind of relationship between, you know, particular two species. I can't recall which ones they are, but he couldn't quite pin down or explain why, but that blog did explain clearly how the genetic connection was there. So that's just one example of how we're trying to push the boundaries and real knowledge, you know, of agarwood, and not just, you know, we don't want to sell agarwood and market it, you know, with fancy words. We want to really sort of give and share real knowledge about this thing, because if you've got love for something, then you have respect for it, you know, and if you have respect for it, then you really pull out the stops in sharing this kind of knowledge and learning about the thing that you love, you know, and learning what the facts are. And so I think that is another aspect. I mean, I did promise Malik that I'd add to the blogs, and I've got some interesting things coming up. I've got there's a very interesting take that I've got on how to interpret the smell of oud. So I'm writing an article on that, and how to study oud, how to appreciate it, because some vendors have talked about, you know, oud study, oudication, etc., which is great, you know, but I'm trying to give a method to newbies and to people who are beginners, and how they can study oud, and how they can help benchmark different oils and identify what's what. And part of that process is a blog entry that we've got. I think it's in Al-Hashimi, but it's definitely on Oudict. Is the oud wheel that I've taken the concept from the scent wheel, but it shows the evolution of the oil on your skin, you know, over time. The color, because oils are sometimes associated with color, scent, right? Cambodia is associated with the color red. Krasner from Thailand, you know, yellow. So these kind of things, that the oud wheel encapsulates all these different properties visually in one go. I urge people to have a look on the Al-Hashimi website. It's there. If it's not there, you'll find it on the Oudict forum. But it's the content that I'm developing so that you can see straight away, you know, what to expect from an oud oil. So these kind of things that we're trying to innovate and trying to, you know, add to contribute to the oud community.
And I think you are already doing it. Okay, which could be the rarest ingredient that you worked with?
The rarest ingredients that I've worked with in terms of oud, yeah?
Yeah.
I'd say from the Adan oil that we produced was the rarest, because Filipino oils from Tawi-Tawi are very, very, very rare. In fact, I think, as far as I know, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the world's first Tawi-Tawi distillation. No one's ever produced one and I don't think anyone has produced one since. So that I would say that's pretty rare. There's a question about organic and sustainable oud that someone's asked on the chat, and I think it's a very relevant question to your question, because on the one end of the scale you have rare oils and rare ouds, and how sustainable is that for the future? I don't think it is sustainable, and I think that as oud vendors we have to be responsible to try to work with sustainable methods and innovate. This is where the innovation part comes in, because I don't think we'll ever get or match the great old oils. I mean, Scent Legends that I've got, we're selling some of these old oils that were available through various vendors, but those oils are going to be harder and harder to come by. But that doesn't mean that there's an end for oud. Oud will continue, but it's really up to the vendors to not be lazy and say, okay, the old formula might have been picking the highest grade of wood, distilling it, and then you have a high quality oil. Why not go way beyond that and really engineer and produce in a natural way, produce new products from this natural resource in a sustainable way? And I think the Santal X and the Ceylon X, these products are a move in that direction. So I think definitely, the question about organic sustainable oud is very, very pertinent, very important, and we are focusing on that very heavily.
Yeah. And what made a piece of wood suitable for burning and for oil making and vice versa? Which are the characteristics that they need to have to be suitable either for burning or swiping? I mean, do you select different types or different parts of the wood and then separate it? This is good for burning, this is good for oil making?
Well, it really depends on the resin, right, content and the oil content in the wood. Generally, if oud is found in a tree, the site of infection can vary. It can be in the branches, it can be in the trunk, it can be in various places. And it's the resin content of the wood that dictates what the ultimate final use will be. So if you've got a huge chunk of agarwood and it's got a lot of resin content, etc., the darkest parts will probably be used, maybe sold in the China market if it's high quality enough, or for incense for burning, because it's got high content of resin. And the areas surrounding it, or generally when you distill oils, and what you do is you use when you carve the wood, you use the shavings from that to distill the wood. Now, we haven't always done that. The Adhan, for example, was an exception, and in fact the Filipino oil we're making right now is an exception. We're using the actual hard incense grade pieces that should normally be put on a burner, right, or a heater. We're using it to distill oil, and that can be done. And it does lead to high quality oils. I don't think there's a rock solid relationship between using the most dense or the most resonated part of the tree, which is the most expensive, and making oil out of it, and that therefore suddenly automatically means that you've got the best oil. I don't think that relationship is hard and fast, but there is definitely a relationship there. But in short, in answer to your question, the more heavier and resin dense the wood, it tends to be used for heating or for sculptures or whatever, beads, these kind of things. And as obviously it's a spectrum, right, of darkness. So as you go to the lighter side, where there's more oil content and there's less resin and dark wood, then that'll be used for the oil. But it depends on what the distiller wants to do, what the vendor wants. Sometimes if the vendor wants a high quality oil, and they want to, pull all the stops out and have no expense spared, then they'll use wood that should be used for incense for the oil.
Yeah. Okay, and I know we are running out of time, so let me know if I can throw a couple of questions, or if we pass to Imperial Oud, because these are two personal questions. So
appreciate that. I really thank you for your time. And again, thanks for coming on the show. As I said last time when I spoke to you, I hope it's not the first and last time you're on the show. I hope that we see you more often, and maybe you can deepen your relationship with natural perfumery and with ouds.
I'm wishing it too.
Yeah. Okay, take care. I'm going to get Faisal on the line so that we can conduct the interview. But I really appreciate your time, and I'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, Nadeem. I will keep watching you.
Thank you, Kike.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.